Hello to you. My name's Vic Gilgis, and this is episode 30. Rejoice, you are not who you think you are. So, my intention here is to help you with your well-being, and whilst doing that, to also help myself with mine. It seems a puzzling or provocative statement to make that the title of this podcast, You Are Not Who You Think You Are. Now, our conditioning through life, what our parents told us, teachers told us, etc., that is who we think we are. And that becomes our habits, our way of thinking, which leads to our ways of behaviour. And that's the situation. But we have a thing called consciousness. And when we get to a raised level of consciousness and expanded awareness, in other words, what I'm saying is that at the moment, because of our way of thinking and what we know, it is limited to just what we know. We do not know what is unknown. We know what we believe, and maybe we think that is good enough. But when it comes to if we believe that we are not very bright, or we believe that we are not a nice person, or we're not cutting it because of looks or money or whatever it may be, possessions, then the mind, which works a lot in comparisons, which, as I've always said, is the killer of joy, starts to say, well, you could do better. And that sets up tensions. And we are built like this because that is our ego. And it's a good thing in many ways, because we should always strive, wrong way to think this, but what I'm saying is that it's always a good thing to be better and do better and be happier. But those are just words, really, in a sense. Of course, we should, if you are a writer or a singer, you always hope to improve upon that. And there's nothing wrong in that. Those are skills. But we are much more than our skills. We, in fact, if the thing that our mind will do in always wanting us to do better, in that is the positive thing about it, is that we will strive to do better. But the negative thing about it is that we will always kick ourselves up the backside for not doing better. And many of us are a bit like this because of our past, because of our bringing up, because of our peers, our siblings. We look at that and say to ourselves, well, we're not as good as them, or we could be better. And that brings in psychological suffering. And so there are many modalities, many approaches in, say, counselling, which look at our behaviour and try to adjust our way of thinking or adjust our behaviour to enable us to be a bit more positive about ourselves. So we're talking about positive thinking, looking in the mirror and kind of saying you're a beautiful little boy, you're a beautiful budgie and all the rest of it. Well, the thing is, we're all beautiful anyway. We're all unique. And to kind of want to be like a certain standard, whose standard, we are okay anyway. And the thing about the principles, the three principles, points to the fact that we are innately okay. So what is inside is okay. And the reason that I mention inside is because a lot of us look from the outside in. So we say that our life circumstances, events that happen, in other words, the outside world impinges upon us and makes us feel a particular way. So we may be happy or sad about what's going on. When we reverse this to say it's inside out, in other words, it's not the outside world or circumstances, it's the way in which we think about them. And if we are thinking about stuff, then first thing I will say is that our broadband, our headspace, like we cannot see all the colours of the spectrum, it's the same with our thoughts. There are thoughts that we have based on prior information that is not the full picture. But the full picture can be made aware to us, not by running through what we already know, but by the fact that we are innately okay, and we are innately okay because we have a consciousness which can be raised. And when that consciousness is a low level of consciousness, which is dwelling on all the limitations that our mind says we may have, or again looking at the outside in, that people or life has said about us that we believe, and again it's just a belief, is that this is not the truth. In other words, we live in a thought-created reality, not the reality of the outside world. And once we start to see that, hopefully that raises our level of consciousness. Because when we take less notice of our thoughts and give them a rest or turn away from them for a while, then ideas or thoughts can come to us which are outside of that box that this is normally in. And we all know this, that when we write, or other people write, or music is made, that things happen, things come to us that we would not have thought of. And this is what I mean by inside out. So knowing that we live in a thought-created reality means that it's not the truth. Our thoughts are not the truth. So, I mean, my example I always give of this is that, when I was a youngster, I would go to a party, and then the next day, I would say to my mate, wasn't that a great party? Or wasn't it a bad party? And often my mate would say, oh, no, I didn't see it like that. If you thought it was a good party, I thought it was a terrible party. So they saw the same party through a different lens, a different viewpoint. So we don't know really what is the truth. It's our interpretation of the truth. And so what I'm hopefully putting across here is that we can often get hung up by what we think is the truth. Now, give you an example here. I was down the pub the other day and sat outside in the sun. It was lovely. And there was a chap sat on another bench on his own. I was on my own. And for some reason, we just got involved in a conversation. And he started telling me about some issues that he was having with his job. And it was generally speaking, the greasy pole, isn't it difficult? Career land, trying to get on in your occupation, etc., etc. So it certainly wasn't on, don't we enjoy the fact that it's lovely to have a job and work, in actual fact, keeps us productive, and work in actual fact can really, get us involved in creating things for the good. No, what it was just the opposite. It was what drudgery, what a waste of time. I wouldn't do it if I didn't get paid for it, etc. And what I found myself doing was confirming what this chap was saying by relating to my experiences of when things had been bad when I was in career land, in going out to work. Now, when you think about that, so I think I was doing this to, in a way, sorry about saying this, but I think I was trying to engender myself with this chap by kind of saying, or being on his side. I knew what he was talking about because I'd been through that. But really what was going on there from his point of view was probably he thought, the world of work is terrible, and this chap is agreeing with me, is confirming my beliefs. And isn't that true? That whenever we have a belief, if we expand on that, it's like an algorithm in a computer. If you're looking for something, it will find something on that because it's programmed to do that. And if you look even further about that particular thing, it will give you even more information about that particular thing. And down you go through this kind of rabbit hole. That's why people who go online and get stuff about suicide, they find more and more stuff about suicide because the algorithms are programmed to give them that. And that is a bit like life. We see all around us algorithms, and I became that algorithm for that chap who said work was not likable, and I was confirming his belief. And also, when you think about it, that's what we do. We like to have, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, that's okay. So if you take it to its opposite, we can be very Pollyanna-ish, where life is wonderful. We're floating around like bunny rabbits, da-di-da-di-da. So I suppose that can be just as foolish. That can be just as much misleading. Point I'm making is that life is life. And in a way, if you want to live in a fool's paradise, you can. If you want to live in a miserable world, you can. And all you'll see is more and more of it. Now, an example of this is each year I used to get a calendar called The Far Side. And last year's calendar, it was the Monday the 29th of July 2024. And it was entitled The Not So Fun Whatsoever House. And so what it was is it's an amusement park and people queuing up to go into this house with the label being The Not So Fun Whatsoever House. Queuing up to go in there. And if they just looked across the way, there was all the people that were coming out of having been in this not so fun whatsoever house, coming out, crying and looking miserable. Well, of course they would, because that's what they've gone into. So why do it? And that's the point I'm making, is why go to the places in your mind that just, beget misery and more misery? But we do that because the mind, the mind likes to, I'm doing that, pick at scabs, look at scabs. It's the way in which the mind is built. It's being inquirous in that sense, but it's also saying, why is this doing this? Why does this hurt me? I want to think more and more about the hurt. And it becomes, for those of you that remember, a bit like the Jeremy Kyle show, where everybody, you said this and you shouldn't have said that, and I said this and you disagreed with me. And naturally, if you say something that somebody doesn't like, they're going to say just the opposite. They're never going to come to some agreement. And that was the whole point of the show. That was the supposedly entertainment factor, that people liked to listen to other people having a damn good row with each other. So that was the not so fun whatsoever program, the Jeremy Kyle show. But how often are we in life like that we're thinking about he said, she said, shouldn't have said, I don't like that, why are they like that? Well, We forget that we are alive, that we've got this. I'm bringing this a little bit early because I'm going to mention this at the end. We've got this life energy running through us, which knows what to do anyway. So we don't have to be thinking about stuff. In fact, I used to do this many years ago. If I had a problem, I used to write it out and try and come to some solution. Well, I never come to any solution because the mind is not capable of coming out with a solution, because it created the problem in the first place by being, in effect, on the Jeremy Kyle show, and in effect being and going into the not so fun whatsoever house. Now, one of the very first books that I wrote, going back a while, well, first of all, I went through Lulu, but then I went through Amazon, and I can't remember which it was. I think it was Amazon. I had a lot of errors. So what you do is you write your manuscript or the book, and you send it through the computer to Amazon, Kindle publishers or whatever they are, and the computer looks at it all and comes back with spelling errors. Well, I know you've got spelling checks nowadays, but a grammar. Anyway, if there was anything it didn't like, the system, it fed it back to you, and so that was quite helpful. So you made corrections. But in one of my books, it kept, no matter what I did, I seemed to, you went from having 20 errors to 10 errors to 5 errors to 1 error. And so I got rid of all the other errors, just this one error. And it kept coming back all the time. And I could not work out what this was. And in the end, I had to ring up somebody, a person. A real person. And this is what I mean, getting away from the computer, because that's all this is. It's in other words, rubbish in, rubbish out. And what I'm saying is that there can be good stuff in and good stuff out when we listen to our presence, when we listen to our life energy. But I'll come back to that later. What I'm talking about is this one error. And this chap said to me, he said, you've got a transparency over your page. Each of your pages, every page in the book, a transparency. And until that's an error, and until I lift that, I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, there's something that you've done on every page, and that's wrong. And I couldn't understand what this meant. And then it dawned on me, and what it was, I used to read and listen to Wayne Dyer, brilliant man, spiritual man, a lot of common sense on how to be happy through understanding who we really are. And he once said on a programme that when he wrote to be creative, he wrote with a purple pencil or purple pen. And of course I thought, I could be more creative if I wrote like that. And so what I did, instead of having a purple pen, when I was typing, my page on the computer had a purple tint to it. So I was looking at this purple tint and typing in. And I thought, well, this will make me more creative. What I didn't realise was that I was already creative, because innately we are creative. And we don't need a purple pen. But it's nice if we think we do. And so when I removed this, what was called this transparency, the error disappeared. And the editor said, that's fine, go ahead, publish, you see. So it was all good. The reason I'm bringing this story up is that we have a transparency in our thoughts. So a lot of people, to them, the sky is not blue. I mean, it's not blue anyway, by the way. This, again, is just a misleading thought. We look at the sky. Well, it's cloudy today, but earlier outside it was lovely and blue. But if you've been up in a plane, even when you look up at the sky and it's blue, when you get up in a plane, the sky is not blue. We think it's blue. In other words, this, don't believe what you're told. Don't believe what you see. Where was I? Yeah, this conditioning, this overlay, and it is conditioning. We have that, we look at the sky and what we see is dragons and lightning and weird creatures flying around. Well, in actual fact, we are really the sky, which couldn't give a monkey's what is flying through it. So it just could not. So when we remember that our presence, our awareness is untainted and untouched by all this, like a mirror which is not affected by what moves in front of it, it just is aware. And in that awareness is an intelligence. So it observes. And it's a bit like saying we can observe our thoughts. And the reason we can observe our thoughts is because we're not our thoughts. So who are we really? When we back up from this, we start to see that we are more than our thoughts. And by more than our thoughts is our awareness, which is innately okay and has intelligence built into it. You know what to do. You get a knowing which is beyond the abilities of this computer, rubbish in, rubbish out, to comprehend. That is that. So, in other words, when we go quiet to our thoughts and let our mind open up, then we start to know what matters. So, I'll finish off here by reading from Hafiz, a 14th century poet. And one of the poems or prose that Hafiz wrote was, "The subject tonight is love." I'll read it. "The subject tonight is love, and for tomorrow night as well. As a matter of fact, I know of no better topic for us to discuss until we die." Well, I like that. I think it's very profound. In other words, why have the Jeremy Kyle show going on in our lives all the time? Why have this transparency of judgment and grievances and upsetness and us and them, when in actual fact those really are just sides that this mind takes, which is a wonderful thing anyway, because our mind, can have creative thoughts, but those thoughts always come from a different dimension, a different realm. This is stuck in a computer which has got an algorithm, which is whatever we believe, it gives us more of. And so when we look to being away from beliefs, beyond beliefs, to being open to what is our awareness, so we are stepping back from our thoughts to our being, our awareness, the what isness of us, the isness of us, then that's when good stuff starts to come, creative stuff starts to come, and we are away from the negativity or the overlay that I mentioned earlier. And it's true that misery begets misery, and grace and love, as I've mentioned, begets more of that. And when we talk about love, I'm talking here about the oneness that is different to this separateness. This is always trying to be separate. I'm me and they are they. When we look at oneness, which is just what love is, what life is, the life energy, and that is love because we've been given that. In other words, the whole of creation is just still expanding with its aliveness, with its intelligence, and it runs through us and is part of us. And when we rest in that, and I say rest because it doesn't need a lot of effort. In fact, it doesn't need any effort. It's effort when we start trying to ponder, oh my God, this is okay for solving that type of problem. How do I cook the dinner? How do I plan that journey? It's brilliant at that. But when it comes to knowing what it's all about, a knowingness of the right thing to do, then that comes from love. That comes from this intelligent energy, this awareness. So I think I'll, just quickly, I mentioned in an earlier podcast that I did some hypnotherapy. Well, I practiced it for quite a while. And what I found out there is that the mind believes what you tell it. So when the mind is relaxed, and so your critical faculties are less on guard, as it were, saying, oh, I don't believe this because I believe that. I'm not going to accept that because this is what I think. When it's open to suggestion, then I suppose you could call it brainwashing. When you put into that mind stuff, it will believe it. And so just think on that. The mind believes what it is told. So when you have a raised consciousness about all this, that you are more than your mind. In fact, you're not your mind. You're not your heart. You're not where are you? Are you in there? Are you in here? Are you, no. But when you go, and I don't mean quiet in terms of volume, but when you go quiet to your thoughts, you can feel that energy in your body, that oneness in your body, that okayness in your body, and it knows what to do. That's why your body functions. That's why life will give you that knowing, because it's presence. It's always been there. It's got the bigger picture. This has got a limited picture. So that's where I'll stop. Well, what I will do is, if you wish, just have a relaxing time here. So provided you're not operating any machinery or driving, just kind of sit and relax and just go down through your body, sort of like doing a body scan here, just, relaxing the scalp, being easy around your eyes, relaxed jaw, soft neck. Let the tensions just drop off your shoulders, just relax, going down through your body. Relaxed breathing, that's right. To your tummy, you got your arms, just letting the feeling go down, just of relaxing, just at ease, just being there. To your hips, just feeling comfortable. That's right, just so relaxed, just going down through your body, through your legs, to your ankles, just relax, going right down through everything, right to the tips of your toes, just feeling, just drifting, knowing everything's okay. You can be relaxed, you are relaxed, that's right, just being calm. And just remembering that you are more than you think you are. You're not your mind. You are life's energy which is behind that. You're not your thoughts. You're more than your thoughts. And it's nice to be able to rest in that level of confidence, that when you need to know, you will get to know. Because in you is that wisdom. In you is the okayness. In you is the peace and contentment. It's not to be found in the mind, which thinks it's separate, which is always at odds with everything, and it's trying its best. But when you give that a holiday and just come back right into yourself, just relax into that and just be at peace with what is peace, that love, that Hafiz said, nothing better to discuss until we die. And what he means by that is, It's not just the word love that you would discuss, but it's all the aspects of it, like compassion, like caring, like understanding, like being with others, kindness, belonging, because we are all one. So I hope you take that away with you. I want you to come back into the room, and I hope that's helped you. So thank you for watching or listening. I'll see you again. Thank you very much.